Okay, so we are on day 2 of our color scheme painting. So you should hopefully have the ground you've established or toning of your canvas that you created last time with the tint on your color palette. So today the simple step is we're just going to go ahead and sketch things out so we know the placement, and we're just going to use possibly stencils if you need. There are stencils available if you need help drawing your basic forms. I often like to start with a stencil if I have some really big shapes. It just gives me a nice focal point to bounce off of. So because I have that big moon shape in the sky, I'm going to go ahead and start by using a circle stencil to kind of create that. Just using a simple pencil to kind of lay everything out today following your sketch. Okay, so we have that. Creating the horizon line, of course, is very important on here. So there we have the little horizon line. Okay, just referring back to my sketch here. Then the next thing I have, just placing the biggest dominant shapes. I have these palm trees. You can see I have a little bit of the previous painting showing through, so I'm probably going to have to do a little bit of really thick paint application here so that we can't see that. Okay, just a quick little sketch of the basic forms. You don't want to be detailed here and trying to make like every palm leaf and stuff. That's going to end up being too cumbersome for you when you try to start painting. So I'm just placing basic shapes today. So we have the ocean line, then we have shoreline here, then we have the basic form of the cube, which is the little beach house right here. Got a nice little bit of perspective happening there. Okay, since I've drawn that away, I'm going to kind of bring my shore up a little bit more so it has some ground to be sitting on. Just getting basic placements of anything that I need. Got the fence here. Kind of map that out gradually. Have them get bigger as they get closer. I'm going to be bringing them over a little farther than they were in my sketch. And that's okay to make some changes as you are going through this process. That's going to just be a natural part of the process because you are adapting. And you just want to make the shape or decision that's going to be best for your canvas, even if you have to defer a little bit from your original sketch, as long as you are still getting everything placed in a way that seems to make sense to you. Okay, so there's where I'm at for a basic sketch. And I have my shapes placed. I have some little markings to delineate some of the other large objects that I'm going to be creating. So if you get to this point, what I find to be most helpful when you are working with a color scheme is we are going to just place the highlights and shadows. In classical painting, you would call this an underpainting, okay? Which basically means I'm going to place my brightest whites and my darkest darks. And that just helps to make the rest of it seem a little bit less intimidating. Okay, so for example, I need to make some decisions here about where my light source is coming from. If I have a sphere, okay, obviously this could be my sun or moon kind of light source, but there's also a shadow on there. So I'm going to take white today and start placing in my brightest areas. So I'm going to just make the artistic decision that the right side of my sphere is the brightest white area, okay? So I'm just taking a rounded tip brush and I'm just taking plain white. I have not mixed this with anything. And I'm going to create the highlight on my sphere. And bring it about halfway. You will have to do several layers since you've kind of toned the paper, but that's also all right because hopefully your color scheme you've chosen, these are all colors that go together or work well together in a color scheme. So if anything, just having that tone is going to help support what you choose to do with your painting, okay? So just a little highlight there, okay? And then I'm going to create a little bit of a gradient at another time. So now I'm going to think, okay, where else, if this is my light source, anytime you're creating a painting, you have to think of where is my light source. So because my light source is on the left-hand side, the left-hand side of any objects below there is going to be under a highlight. The right-hand side will then be in shadow, right? So that means that the right panel of my rooftop here is going to be brightest because it would be catching that moonlight. So I'm going to paint in that little shape. The also right side of the building itself that I've created would be getting some bright light. Okay. Again, we're just using straight white here to find our highlights. The left side of the posts would be getting that. Okay. So I'm going to go along each one of these vertical lines that I've made to kind of tell me where the posts are. You don't have to be too picky at this point. I try to be really loose with my painting when I'm first putting down these values and stuff, because really the most important thing is to just get the highlights in the right place. You can crisp edges and other things like that at other points later on. All right, then I'm going to think, okay, remember my light source is on the left. What else could be something that would have a side in facing towards the left? There could certainly be some highlights on the water. That's something you could always add again later, but I'll just kind of touch in some places that maybe this light source is glimmering on the water. My palm trees are directly in front of my light source, so that does make them a little tricky. They're pretty much going to be in a silhouette or shadow, so they're going to be mostly black. However, if you want to, you could go ahead, like for example, on the left side of my palm tree trunk here, I'm just going to paint a little white stripe. And so this one, since it's now on the left side of my left placed light source, I'm actually going to place my highlight on the opposite side because we can see where the light would be casting to that palm tree. So it's actually going to switch because of the placement of the palm tree. Okay, so this is just a very simple little layout of where my brights are going to be. All right, and that's where you can move on if you feel like you are done sketching.